Hello, friend. Welcome to Science for Sleep. Whether you are coming back tonight or discovering this quiet channel for the first time, this is a calm place to slow down, learn something gentle, and let the day slowly loosen its hold. Tonight, we are following the life of bear cubs. Not the full-grown bear standing high on its paws, with a heavy shoulder hump, long claws, and a body built for digging, climbing, fishing, or crossing ice. We are beginning much smaller than that. We are beginning in the dark warmth of a den, in the middle of winter, with a cub that has not yet seen the world. A newborn bear cub is not born looking like a small version of the adult bear it may become. It is born blind. It is weak. Its fur may be thin. Its legs cannot carry it through snow, leaves, mud, or forest ground. A newborn black bear cub in North America often weighs less than 1 pound. That is a surprising beginning for an animal whose mother may weigh 100 to 200 pounds and whose adult relatives can become far larger in rich habitats. In many black bear populations, cubs are born in January or early February, while the mother is still inside her winter den. Outside, the forest may be frozen. Snow may lie over fallen logs and roots. Food may be scarce, insects hidden, berries gone, and nut trees bare. Yet inside the den, a new bear has already begun its life. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, you're welcome to subscribe, and if it feels natural, to leave a comment sharing where you're listening from tonight. It helps others find this calm corner of science, one sleepy listener at a time. The contrast is one of the most interesting things about bears. They are large mammals, but they give birth to very small young. A polar bear cub may be born in a snow den at around 1 pound, or a little more, blind, lightly furred, and unable to follow its mother across the ice. A giant panda cub is even more extreme. A newborn panda may weigh only 3 to 5 ounces. It can be pink, mostly hairless, and so small beside its mother that the difference seems almost impossible at first. Yet pandas are bears too, and their tiny cubs show how far this pattern can go. Bear cubs begin life deeply unfinished. They are not like a moose calf, which can stand soon after birth. They are not like a young bison, already built to move with the herd. A bear cub begins life in a hidden place, close to the mother's body, where warmth matters more than walking and milk matters more than movement. This kind of beginning is not a mistake. It is part of the way bears fit birth into the year. The mother has already spent summer and autumn feeding, building fat, and preparing for the long season when she may eat very little. By the time her cubs are born, her body has become their shelter, their warmth, and their food source. The den is quiet, but it is not empty. The mother's breathing warms the small space. The cub presses against fur and skin. It searches by touch and smell before its eyes can open. Its first world is not a mountain, a river, a forest, or a sheet of Arctic ice. Its first world is the curve of its mother's body. That beginning will matter for everything that comes later. Before a cub can climb a tree, it must survive the den. Before it can follow a salmon river, it must learn the scent of milk. Before it can cross a home range of valleys, ridges, berry patches, streams, or frozen sea ice, it must grow strong enough to crawl, nurse, and stay warm. A bear cub's life begins independence so complete that almost every part of survival must come through the mother. And that is what makes the rest of its growth so remarkable. the animal that may one day turn over logs for insects, dig roots from the soil, fish in rushing water, or travel alone through miles of forest, begins as a small, blind body in winter darkness. Its strength has not arrived yet. Its map of the world has not been drawn yet. Its senses, muscles, memory, and choices still have to form. The first question is how a cub this helpless can be born at the coldest, quietest time of year, when most of the living world outside the den seems to be waiting for spring. The answer begins before birth, with a pregnancy that does something unusual. It waits. In bears, mating and birth are separated by more than simple months of steady growth. A female black bear may mate in late spring or early summer, often in June or July, when forests are green, insects are active, and berries are beginning to form. At that point, the first step of reproduction has happened. A sperm cell has joined with an egg cell, creating a fertilized egg. That tiny beginning divides into a small cluster of cells called an embryo. An embryo is the earliest stage of a developing animal, before it has the clear shape of a cub. In many mammals, that embryo soon attaches to the wall of the uterus, the organ inside the mother, where young develop before birth. In bears, the early embryo can pause before that attachment happens. This pause is called delayed implantation. Scientists also call it embryonic diapause. Diapause means a resting or slowed stage in development. The embryo remains alive, but its growth is held back. For a black bear, that pause can last through much of summer and autumn. The mother may be walking through forests, feeding on blueberries, huckleberries, acorns, beechnuts, ants, larvae, grasses, roots, and any other rich food her habitat offers. The future cub is already connected to that season, even before it has begun to look like a cub. The mother's body is measuring the year in a quiet way. Her body condition matters. Her fat stores matter. The amount of food on the landscape matters. A strong autumn with good nut crops or heavy berry production can help a female enter winter with enough stored energy. A poor food year can make reproduction much harder. If she has not gained enough fat, the embryo may fail to implant, or the pregnancy may not continue successfully. This is one reason bear reproduction is tied so closely to food. The cub's life is shaped by meals eaten months before birth. In black bears, implantation usually happens in late fall, often around November, when the female is entering her denning period or preparing for it. At implantation, the embryo attaches to the uterus and begins a much more active phase of development. From that point, the true pregnancy is relatively short. The cubs may be born in January or early February, while winter still holds the forest. This timing allows the mother to give birth in a sheltered place, during a season when she is already staying still and conserving energy. The small size of the cub now begins to make sense. A bear mother does not need to carry a large, fully formed young through autumn, while also trying to build enough fat for winter. Instead, the early embryo waits through the feeding season. Then development speeds up after the mother has stored the energy she will need. This arrangement links birth to the den. It also links birth to the summer and autumn landscape. A cub born in winter carries the hidden result of salmon caught months earlier, berries stripped from low shrubs, acorns found under oak trees, or insects pulled from rotting wood. In coastal Alaska, a brown bear mother that feeds heavily on salmon may enter winter with a different energy reserve, than a bear living far from fish streams. In eastern forests, a black bear's success may depend partly on hard mast, which means calorie-rich tree food such as acorns and beech nuts. In northern habitats, the length of winter and the timing of spring can change how long stored fat must last. The pregnancy that waits is a way of matching new life to those conditions. It does not promise success. It gives the mother's body a chance to continue only when survival is more likely. The cub's beginning is precise in a quiet, biological way. Before there is a blind newborn pressing against warm fur, there is a season of feeding. Before there is milk, there is stored fat. Before there is birth, there is a pause. When that pause ends, the cub begins growing toward a winter arrival. Its first world will need to hold warmth, darkness, safety, and the mother's resting body. That world is the den. Around the mother, the shelter has already begun doing part of the work. The pause in pregnancy has placed birth in winter, when the mother is settled and still. Now the outside shape of that shelter matters. For a newborn cub, a den is the first habitat it will ever know. It is the first climate. It is the first boundary. It is the first place where the cub's body has any chance to keep living, while it is still too small to control much for itself. A black bear may choose many kinds of dens, depending on the land around her. In the forests of eastern North America, she may use a hollow tree, where the opening leads into a dark space inside old wood. In rocky country, she may settle into a cave-like gap between boulders. Under a fallen tree, tangled roots can form a natural roof. In some places, a black bear may dig into soil, scrape out a shallow chamber, or use a brush pile packed with branches, leaves, and snow. The exact den is different from place to place, but the job remains steady. It lowers exposure. It keeps wind from moving directly across the body. It softens the reach of rain, sleet, and falling snow. It lets the mother rest with less disturbance, while her cubs nurse close against her. Brown bears often use dens with a more dug-in feel. In parts of Alaska, the Rocky Mountains, and northern Eurasia, a brown bear may dig into a hillside, a slope below tree line, or a protected bank where soil and snow can cover the entrance. The slope helps with drainage, so melting snow and cold water are less likely to collect under the bear. Roots, stones, and packed earth help hold the chamber in place. A brown bear den may look simple from outside, just a dark entrance in snow or soil. But inside it is shaped by the bear's body, claws, and repeated turning. Polar bears use a different material. A pregnant polar bear may dig into wind-packed snow, often where drifting snow has built up along a bank, ridge, or coastal slope. In places such as northern Alaska, Canada's Hudson Bay region, Svalbard, and parts of Greenland, the snow itself becomes the wall. Snow can seem cold to the touch, but packed snow holds many tiny air spaces. Those air spaces slow heat loss. That is why a snow den can protect a mother and cubs from Arctic wind that would be far more dangerous in the open. A den creates a microclimate. A microclimate is a small local climate inside a larger one. The forest outside may be below freezing. The wind may cut across an open ridge. A snowfield may shift under storms for days. Inside the den, air movement is slower, sound is softer, and temperature changes are less sudden. For a cub with thin fur, closed eyes, weak limbs, and poor temperature control, That difference matters. A newborn cub cannot simply shiver itself warm for long periods. It cannot walk to a better shelter. It cannot choose a dry place away from a draft. Its survival depends on the mother's body and on the den holding that body in a protected space. Stillness is part of the design. The mother saves energy by moving very little. Her heart rate and breathing can slow during winter rest, and her body uses stored fat to support her own life while milk begins feeding the cubs. Less movement means less wasted energy. Less disturbance means fewer chances that she must leave, shift position, or expose the cubs to cold. The den is small because a small space is easier to warm. The entrance is often narrow because a narrow opening lets in less wind. The chamber is close because the cubs need contact more than distance. Within that enclosed space, the first weeks of life are measured by tiny movements. A cub presses into fur. A small mouth finds a nipple. A paw kneads against the mother's body. The mother's breath moves through the dark chamber. Outside, winter continues across trees, slopes, rivers, or sea ice. Inside, the cub's world is held within a few warm inches. The shelter can block weather and quiet the season around them. The food still has to come from the mother herself. Inside the den, feeding happens without a single berry bush, salmon stream, or nut tree nearby. The cub nurses from a mother who may pass through much of winter without eating. Her body is resting, but it is also working. Milk is being made. Heat is being held. Energy stored months earlier is moving into a newborn body that could never reach food on its own. Before denning, many bears enter a heavy feeding period called hyperphagia. Hyperphagia means greatly increased eating. For black bears and brown bears, this feeding often becomes most intense in late summer and autumn, when high-calorie foods are easier to find. A black bear in an eastern hardwood forest may feed on acorns from oak trees, beech nuts from beech trees, wild berries, roots, grasses, insects, and the soft larvae hidden inside rotten logs. In the Appalachian Mountains, in New England, and across parts of Canada, a strong acorn year can make a large difference for bears preparing for winter. In coastal Alaska, a brown bear may feed heavily on salmon, especially when sockeye, pink, chum, or coho salmon return from the ocean into rivers. Each fish carries fat and protein gathered from marine food webs. When a bear eats that salmon, some of that ocean energy becomes bear fat. Later, in the den, some of that stored fat can become milk. The same pattern appears in quieter forest foods. An acorn that falls under a white oak in October can help feed a cub in January. A patch of blueberries eaten in August can become part of the mother's winter reserve. A log torn open for ants or beetle larvae can add to the energy that keeps the family alive while snow covers the ground. The den may look separate from the rest of the year, but its food supply was collected long before the cub was born. During winter rest, the mother's metabolism slows. Metabolism is the set of chemical processes that keep the body alive, including how it uses energy. A denning bear breathes more slowly, moves less, and uses less fuel than it would while roaming in summer. Even with that slowing, her body must still support her organs, keep her warm, and produce milk for her cubs. For a mother with 2 or 3 cubs, that demand can be heavy. Milk is rich because the cubs need to grow quickly in a short, protected season. Bear milk contains a lot of fat compared with the milk of many familiar domestic animals. That fat helps build tissue and supply energy. Protein helps build muscle, skin, organs, and the growing structure of the body. Water, minerals, and other nutrients move through the milk as well, giving the cub what it needs before it can chew, dig, climb, or follow. A newborn black bear cub may weigh less than 1 pound. By the time it leaves the den in spring, it may weigh several pounds and have stronger limbs, thicker fur, and more control over its movements. That change happens while the mother is mostly still. Her body is spending what it saved. Over winter, female bears can lose a large share of their body weight because fat is being used for warmth, basic survival, and nursing. The loss can be especially serious for mothers raising cubs, since milk production adds another steady drain. A bear that entered the den with strong fat reserves has more to give. A bear that entered winter thin has less room for error. This is why autumn food matters so much. The cub's first growth depends on a chain that began outside the den, under leaves, beside rivers, in berry patches, and beneath trees. The mother gathered that energy when the weather was warmer. Her body stored it as fat. Winter slowed her movement. The den held her in place. Milk carried the stored season into the cub. By spring, the newborn that once pressed blindly against fur has already changed because of all that hidden work. Yet the body taking in this milk is still unfinished in many ways. It is growing fast, while sight, strength, balance, and temperature control are still catching up. Those unfinished parts make the cub's first weeks very different from the childhood of many other large mammals. The milk entering its body is rich, and growth can be fast. But the newborn cub begins with almost no ability to handle the world alone. Its eyes are closed. Its ears are still developing. Its limbs are short and weak. Its claws may already be visible, but they cannot yet pull the cub up a tree or carry it across a slope. Its mouth can nurse, but it has few teeth, or none that matter for chewing real food. Its fur may be thin enough that the mother's warmth is part of survival. A newborn black bear cub can look almost unfinished beside the adult female curled around it. Its skin may show through the fine hair. Its head may seem large compared with its small body. Its movements are slow, pushing and crawling rather than walking. The cub can press forward, turn, squeak, and search for milk, but it cannot leave the den, escape danger, or choose a warmer place. Biologists describe this kind of young animal as altricial. Altricial means born in a helpless state, needing major care after birth. A young robin in a nest is altricial. A newborn mouse is altricial. A bear cub is altricial too, even though the adult bear belongs to a very different world of claws, muscle, scent, and distance. This is useful because it separates two very different ways young animals can begin life. Some mammals are born more developed. A white-tailed deer fawn, for example, can stand within hours after birth. A moose calf may be on its feet quickly because it needs to follow its mother through wetlands, brush, and open edges. A bison calf in a grassland herd can stand, walk, and begin keeping up soon after entering the world. Those animals are often called precocial. Precocial means born with more advanced movement and senses. They still need their mothers, but their bodies are prepared for motion almost immediately. Bear cubs follow a different path. Their early safety comes from staying hidden, nursing often, and remaining close to the mother's body. This allows birth to happen while the mother is inside the den, during the months when she is using stored fat instead of active feeding. cub does much of its early development outside the womb, in a protected chamber, with the mother continuing the work through milk, warmth, and careful positioning. This helps explain why the cub can be so small at birth. The mother does not have to carry a large, walking young through the final weeks of autumn. The cub arrives tiny, then grows inside the den while the outside world is still cold. The giant panda shows this pattern in an extreme form. A newborn panda cub may weigh only 3 to 5 ounces. Beside an adult female that can weigh more than 200 pounds, the cub is tiny enough that its size can seem hard to believe. It may be about 1/900th of the mother's weight. Its skin is pink. Its fur is sparse. Its eyes are sealed shut. The black and white markings that make adult pandas so recognizable become clearer later. For the first period of life, the panda mother must hold the cub close, position it for nursing, and keep it warm with careful contact. Other bears are less extreme than pandas, but the same basic idea runs through bear infancy. A cub's body begins life with many systems still developing. Temperature control has to improve. Muscles have to strengthen. Eyes have to open. Balance has to form through repeated small movements. The digestive system must first handle milk, then later adjust to softer foods, then to the wide diet of a growing bear. Even the bones and joints need time under the gentle pressure of crawling, stretching, and eventually walking. The cub's dependence is physical before it is anything else. A cold draft can matter. A poor nursing position can matter. A long separation from the mother's warmth can matter. The den protects the cub from the largest forces outside, while the mother protects it from the smaller failures its own body cannot yet solve. Still, the cub is not motionless. Even in this unfinished state, it has to find the mother's body again and again. Before sight becomes useful, its first map is made from touch, scent, sound, and heat. Inside the den, the cub's first movements are small enough to miss. A paw presses against fur. A head turns slowly. A tiny body pushes forward through warmth, searching for the place where milk is waiting. The cub cannot use the den the way an older bear would use a forest. Its eyes are still closed. Its legs cannot lift it into a real walk. The chamber around it is dark anyway, with no open sky, no long view, and no distant shape to follow. At this stage, sight would offer very little. The useful signals are close. They come from the mother's skin, breath, scent, and body heat. A newborn cub can crawl in short, weak movements. Crawling means it drags and pushes itself forward rather than standing on its feet. That motion may look simple, yet it is enough to move the cub a few inches across the mother's belly or through the bedding material under her body. A few inches can matter inside a den. That distance can bring the cub closer to warmth. It can bring the cub back to the nipple. It can help the cub stay pressed against the mother instead of cooling near the edge of the chamber. Touch is one of the cub's earliest guides. The cub feels the pressure of fur against its face. It feels the curve of the mother's body. It feels the difference between open air and warm skin. Body heat creates a kind of path. Warmth is strongest near the mother and weaker near the den wall or the entrance. For a young animal that cannot control its own temperature very well, that warmth is part of survival. Smell also helps. Bears grow into animals famous for powerful noses And even in early life, scent helps the cub orient itself at close range. The mother's body carries a mix of odors from skin, fur, milk, and the den itself. Around the nipples, scent and touch work together. The cub does not need a wide map yet. It needs to find one small feeding place again and again. Sound adds another layer. Bear cubs can make small squeaks, cries, humming sounds, or soft calls while nursing or searching. These sounds can bring a response from the mother. She may shift her body slightly. She may lower her head. She may use her mouth or paws to pull a cub closer, turn it, clean it, or place it back near her belly. A mother bear does this with care, because the cub is so small compared with her. Even a gentle movement from a large adult body has to be controlled inside the tight space of a den. The cub's calls also show that the den period is more active than it first seems. From the outside, a winter den may look silent. Snow can cover the entrance. Leaves may lie frozen over a hollow log. A hillside den may appear as only a dark gap under roots or packed earth. Inside, many small signals are passing between mother and cubs. A hungry cub makes sound. A cold cub presses closer. A mother shifts, breathes, licks, and adjusts her young. Eye opening comes later, and the timing differs among bears. A black bear cub may open its eyes after several weeks of den life. A giant panda cub may take around 6 to 8 weeks before its eyes are open. For the earliest period, vision is less important than contact. The cub's world is measured by scent near the muzzle, warmth along the belly, the texture of fur, and the low rhythm of the mother breathing nearby. Those close-range senses do enough. They keep the cub connected to milk. They keep the cub near heat. They help the mother respond before a small problem becomes a larger one. Growth is happening quietly through all of this. Milk enters the body. Muscles begin to strengthen. Fur thickens. The small crawling movements become a little more controlled. The den remains dark, yet the cub is already learning the first pattern of life. Move toward warmth, stay near the mother, and feed. For several hidden weeks, this tiny pattern is enough to keep the body growing toward the day when the den will open into spring. Week by week, the cub's small pattern of nursing, crawling, and pressing close begins to change its body. The den remains dim and enclosed, yet the cub inside it is growing through one of the most important periods of its life. A black bear cub may begin at less than 1 pound, with thin fur and weak limbs. By spring, that same cub may weigh several pounds. The exact weight depends on the mother's milk, litter size, den conditions, and the amount of fat she stored before winter. A cub with 1 sibling may receive more milk than a cub in a litter of 3. A mother that entered the den after a strong autumn of acorns, berries, insects, or salmon may have more stored energy to spend. Inside the den, growth is measured in small changes. The fur thickens over the body. The limbs begin to push with more control. The head lifts for longer moments. The cub's crawling becomes stronger, less like a loose drag through bedding, and more like the beginning of directed movement. Its calls may become louder too. Soft squeaks and cries can carry through the small chamber, especially when the cub is hungry, cool, or pressed away from the best nursing position. The mother remains close through this slow change. She may shift her body to give the cubs better access to milk. She may lick them clean. she may gather them nearer if they move too far toward the edge of the warm space. Her own movements are still limited because winter rest is built around saving energy. A denning mother bear can go for months without a normal meal. Her body is using fat reserves to support her organs, keep her warm, and feed the cubs. Every pound the cub gains is connected to that reserve. Brown bear cubs follow the same general pattern, though their exact timing and size can vary by region. In parts of Alaska, the Rocky Mountains, and northern Eurasia, brown bear families may remain in dens until spring snow begins to soften and food becomes more available. By the time they emerge, cubs may weigh several pounds and move with more strength than they had at birth. They still depend on the mother, but their bodies are beginning to prepare for ground, slopes, roots, stones, and cold air. The eyes open during this early development, though the timing differs among bear species. A black bear cub's eyes may open after several weeks. A giant panda cub often takes around 6 to 8 weeks before its eyes open. Vision adds a new stream of information, but the den still keeps the world small. There are no long distances to judge yet. There are no berry patches, streams, tree trunks, or other bears to watch. The cub sees close surfaces first: fur, shadow, den walls, littermates, and the mother's body. Coordination develops in the same gradual way. Coordination means the body's parts begin working together smoothly. A paw presses down, a shoulder pushes. The back legs follow a little more clearly. A cub that once only squirmed can begin to crawl with a purpose. These small movements matter because spring will require much more. Outside the den, the ground will be uneven. Wet leaves may slide underfoot. Snow may crust in the morning and soften by afternoon. Roots can form little steps. Branches can block a path. For a young cub, even a short walk behind the mother can take strength and balance. Den emergence often happens in spring, commonly in March, April, or later, depending on the species, region, weather, elevation, and food supply. A black bear family in a milder forest may leave earlier than a family in colder mountain country. A polar bear mother and cubs may remain inside a snow den until spring, after the cubs have grown enough to travel across ice and snow. The den period acts like a protected bridge. Birth happened while the cub was extremely small. Spring will demand movement, temperature control, following behavior, and the first steps toward feeding outside. Between those two worlds, the hidden weeks strengthen the cub enough to meet air, light, and ground. The chamber that held warmth has done its work quietly. The cub has grown inside a protected world, and the first open landscape is waiting beyond the den entrance. At the entrance, the change comes through air first. Cold air touches the cub's nose. Light reaches eyes that only recently began to open. The smell of damp soil, old leaves, melting snow, tree bark, and the mother's fur all mixed together at the edge of the den. For a young black bear, this first step outside may come in March, April, or even later in colder places. A family in the southern Appalachians may emerge earlier than one in the northern Rocky Mountains. A den high on a cold slope may hold snow longer than a hollow tree in a lower forest. Latitude matters too. A bear family in Ontario, Minnesota, or Alaska may face a different spring than a family in Tennessee or Pennsylvania. The cub leaves the den with a body that has changed, yet it is still small beside the world around it. Snow may remain in shaded patches. Wet leaves may cling to its paws. Roots cross the ground like low wooden rails. A fallen branch can be a real barrier for an animal that weighed less than 1 pound only weeks earlier. The mother does not usually begin with long, wandering travel. A female with small cubs often moves carefully after den emergence. She may stay near the den for a period of time, especially if the cubs are still weak, the weather is poor, or the ground remains covered with snow. Short movements let the cubs practice following without using too much energy. Frequent stops let them nurse, rest, and warm themselves against her body. Spring can look full of life to human eyes, but for a bear, the richest foods often come later. Berries are usually months away. Acorns and beech nuts belong mostly to autumn. Many insects are still hidden or slow in cold soil and wood. Early foods may include fresh grasses, sedges, roots, skunk cabbage in wet forests, leftover nuts from the previous fall, winter-killed animals, and carrion uncovered as snow melts. Carrion means the body of a dead animal. For a bear that has used its fat reserves through winter, even a small food source can matter. For cubs, milk still matters too. A cub may continue nursing after it has left the den, because its teeth, jaws, digestion, and foraging skill are still developing. The mother's milk remains a steady food, while the cub begins learning the uneven outside world. Following becomes the central behavior. A cub learns when the mother stops. It learns when she moves. It learns how close to stay to her back legs or side. If she turns toward cover, the cub follows. If she pauses to sniff a log, the cub has a chance to smell the same wood. If she digs or noses through leaves, the cub can watch the motion before it understands the food. At first, the cub's lessons are simple and physical. A small slope teaches balance. A muddy patch teaches footing. A cold stream edge teaches caution. A low log teaches climbing with awkward paws. The cub may scramble, slip, pause, and try again, while the mother keeps the pace slow enough for the family to stay together. Weather can change the difficulty of these first days. A cold rain can chill a young cub quickly. A late snowfall can cover early plants. Deep snow can make walking harder, especially for small legs. Warm afternoons may soften crusted snow, turning each step into a slow break through the surface. Elevation can delay plant growth, while lower valleys may green earlier and offer more feeding chances. The world outside the den is larger, brighter, and less stable than the chamber where the cub grew. It brings food, but the food is scattered. It brings space, but the space has distance and risk. The mother's body remains the nearest safe point, and her movement becomes the first guide through everything else. As spring opens, the cub is learning more than how to walk behind her. It is beginning to learn the shape of a home, where to stop, where to climb, where to feed, where to rest, and where the mother leads when the forest changes around them. Repeated walks begin to turn scattered places into a pattern. A cub may leave the den knowing only the mother's body, but over spring and summer, that close following starts to build a larger memory. The mother moves through her home range. A home range is the area an animal regularly uses for feeding, resting, drinking, sheltering, and raising young. For a black bear, that range can be small in a food-rich forest, or much larger, where food is spread out. For a brown bear in open northern country, the area may stretch across valleys, riverbanks, slopes, berry fields, and resting sites. For a polar bear, the useful area can shift with sea ice because the hunting surface itself moves and melts through the year. The cub learns this world by staying near the mother. It follows her along creek beds, through thickets, over fallen logs, and across slopes where old leaves slide under its paws. It may trail behind her to a patch of spring grasses, then later to a sunny opening where berries ripen. It may watch her turn over rotting wood for ants, beetle larvae, or termites. It may follow her to water, to bedding places under thick cover, or to trees that can be climbed when safety matters. None of this is taught with signals that resemble human lessons. The mother does not explain the route. The cub learns through repetition. It smells what she smells. It pauses where she pauses. It investigates the same log after she has broken it open. It returns again and again to places where food appears at certain times of year. This kind of learning depends on association. Association means that one thing becomes linked with another through experience. A certain smell near a fallen log may become linked with insects. A damp patch near a stream may become linked with tender spring plants. A sunny slope in July may become linked with berries. A stand of oak or beech trees in autumn may become linked with acorns or beech nuts on the ground. A river in Alaska, when salmon are running, may become linked with fish, adult bears, strong currents, and waiting. Bears are strongly guided by scent. Their noses can gather information from soil, bark, air, scat, tracks, berries, carrion, and other bears. For a cub, scent turns the landscape into a set of clues. The mother's route helps decide which clues matter. If she ignores a plant, the cub may pass it by. If she stops to dig at a root or tear apart a log, the cub has a chance to connect that smell and place with food. Memory is just as important as scent. Spatial memory means remembering where things are in space. For a bear, this can include the location of a berry patch, a safe resting site, a regular stream crossing, or a travel corridor. A travel corridor is a path or strip of land animals use again and again to move between useful places. It may follow a ridge, a river edge, a forest gap, or a line of thick cover. The cub's memory grows through many small returns. Spring greens may appear in one place. Summer berries may ripen somewhere else. Autumn nuts may fall under certain trees. In coastal bear country, salmon may return to the same river system each year. The mother's movements link those places into a seasonal calendar. For the cub, the calendar is experienced through walking, smelling, feeding, and resting. A young bear that remembers good food sites has a better chance of gaining weight before winter. A young bear that remembers safe cover has a better chance of avoiding danger. A young bear that learns when to leave an exposed place and when to climb can carry those reactions into later life. Closeness to the mother, therefore, has a practical shape. Her body gives warmth and milk in the den. Her movements give structure to the outside world. As the cub follows, the landscape becomes less random. The forest begins to have roots. The river begins to have edges. The trees begin to have uses. The ground begins to hold old smells that lead toward food or away from trouble. The map is forming, but a map alone cannot carry a young bear through roots, trunks, slopes, and sudden danger. The cub also needs a body strong enough to use the places it is learning. Strength begins in the pause. A cub following its mother through a forest is learning places, but its body must also learn how to use them. Tree trunks, roots, logs, rocks, and slopes become part of that education. For black bear cubs, climbing is one of the clearest examples. Black bears have curved claws that work well on bark. The claw tips can catch in rough surfaces, while the front legs pull the body upward. The cub's shoulders, wrists, and toes all help turn a tree trunk into a path. Friction matters too. Friction is the grip that happens when two surfaces press against each other. A rough-barked maple, pine, oak, or hemlock gives the claws and paw pads more to hold than a smooth, wet trunk. Body size changes everything. A young cub is light enough that each claw mark and paw hold can support more of its weight. A heavy adult bear has far more muscle, but it also has far more body mass to lift. This is why young black bears can move up trees with surprising ease, especially compared with larger adults. The cub may scramble at first, with back feet slipping and front claws digging in. After repeated attempts, the movement becomes more controlled. The front limbs reach, the claws set. The hind feet press, the body rises a little higher. Climbing can look playful, but for a small bear, it has a serious use. A tree expands safe space upward. On the ground, a cub is slower than many threats, and much smaller than adult bears. Up a trunk, it may be harder to reach. Black bear mothers can use this in defensive situations. If danger appears, a mother may give sounds or movements that send cubs toward a tree. The cubs climb, while the mother stays below, watches, or moves nearby depending on the situation. This does not make the family invincible. It gives the cubs a practical escape route in a forest where vertical space is available. Branch spacing can help or limit the climb. Low branches give a young cub places to rest. A trunk with broken limbs or deep bark cracks offers more holds. A tall, smooth tree can be harder. Rain can make bark slick. Loose bark can tear away under the claws. Even a useful tree has to match the cub's size, strength, and skill. Brown bear cubs can also climb better when they are young and light. As brown bears grow, climbing becomes less common and less easy. Adult brown bears, including the grizzly bears of western North America, usually have bodies built more for digging, walking, and strength on the ground than for tree climbing. Their claws are often longer and less sharply curved than black bear claws. Those claws are excellent for digging roots, tearing into logs, and moving soil, but they are less suited to gripping bark. A small brown bear cub still has the advantage of youth and lower weight. In the first months outside the den, a cub may climb over logs, scramble onto low branches, or get partway up a trunk. The same movement helps it learn balance. A forest floor is uneven. One step may land on moss. The next may land on a loose stick. A slope can shift under wet leaves. Climbing asks the cub to coordinate its paws, shoulders, back, and hips. Coordination means the body parts are working together in a smooth order. That order develops through repetition. Each climb teaches pressure, grip, and timing. A cub that slips slightly learns how bark feels when claws lose hold. A cub that reaches a branch learns how far its front legs can stretch. A cub that pauses above the ground learns how to cling without using all its energy at once. Smallness still brings risk, but in trees it also brings an advantage. The cub's light body can go places an older, heavier bear may avoid. Its world is no longer limited to the ground under its paws. Safety can be above it. Practice can be under its claws. The body that once crawled across a den floor is now learning height, balance, and grip in the open forest. Those same paws will soon be used in a looser way when cubs wrestle with siblings, tumble over logs, chase each other through leaves, and turn movement into play. A young bear's movements become less careful when the family is resting in a safe place. The same paws that grip bark can push against a sibling's shoulder. The same limbs that scramble over roots can chase another cub across leaves, snow, mud, or flattened grass. Play often begins with small invitations. One cub may paw at another. A littermate may roll partly onto its back, twist sideways, and nip toward a face, ear, or foreleg. The bite is usually controlled. The push has force, but not the full force an older bear could use. The cubs are using real muscles in a softer setting. They tumble over each other near the mother. They climb over logs, slide down low slopes, and chase in short bursts that end with sitting, nursing, or resting. A black bear cub in a spring forest may wrestle near a tree trunk where it climbed earlier in the day. A brown bear cub on a grassy Alaskan riverbank may push against a sibling while the mother feeds or watches nearby. Polar bear cubs outside a snow den may roll and paw at each other in the cold, building movement. Before long, travel across sea ice becomes part of life. Play helps build motor control. Motor control means the body's muscles and nerves are learning to work together in a useful order. A cub has to judge how far to reach with a paw. It has to twist without falling badly. It has to balance while another cub pushes back. It has to stop, restart, turn, and grip the ground. These movements are simple, but they add up. A cub that wrestles often is practicing weight shifts. A cub that chases is practicing speed and stopping. A cub that climbs over a littermate or log is practicing where to place its feet. The cub does not need to understand this as practice. The body learns through repeated movement. Biting during play teaches a different kind of control. Young bears have jaws that will become much stronger as they grow. Even while small, they need to learn how much pressure can be used with a sibling before the play changes. Bite inhibition is the ability to limit bite force. A cub may nip too hard, hear a sharp sound from a littermate, and then the play may pause or shift. Over time, these small exchanges help shape social limits. The lesson is physical and immediate. A bite, a cry, a pause, and a return to play can teach more than stillness could. Social play also helps cubs read each other's signals. A relaxed cub moves differently from a frightened one. A sibling that wants to continue play may come back toward the other cub. A sibling that has had enough may turn away, climb, hide near the mother, or settle down. These small choices matter because bears are strong animals even when young. Learning limits within the litter can reduce serious conflict, while the cubs are still sharing space closely. Play costs energy. A cub that runs, wrestles, climbs, and rolls is using calories that came from milk and later from early foods. This is why play often appears more freely when cubs are warm, fed, and relatively safe. Hungry cubs may conserve energy. Cold cubs may stay close to the mother. A family disturbed often may have fewer calm periods where play can unfold. Food conditions, weather, and safety all shape how much play the cubs can afford. The softness of bear cub play comes from this mixture of safety and growth. It can look light and almost careless, yet the body is doing serious work. Muscles strengthen, balance improves, jaw pressure becomes more controlled. Signals between siblings become clearer. A cub that once crawled in darkness is now learning what its own body can do in open space. The mother remains the center of the family, but littermates shape each other too. They are partners in play, warm bodies in rest, and moving targets for practice. They also share the same milk, the same shelter, and the same mother's attention. Inside the small family, cooperation and competition grow side by side. A bear cub's closest companions are often the other small bodies growing beside it. In the den, littermates press together, while the mother curls around them. Their bodies share warmth during the coldest weeks, when each cub is still thin-furred, blind, and unable to move far. A small shift in position can change which cub is closest to milk. A stronger push can place one cub nearer to the mother's belly. Even in the quiet den, family life has a physical order. Black bear litters often include 2 or 3 cubs. Sometimes there is only one. In some food-rich years and healthy populations, a female may have 4. The number depends on many things, including the mother's age, her body condition, the food she found before denning, and the quality of the habitat around her. A young female having her first litter may raise fewer cubs than an older, experienced mother in strong condition. A female that entered winter after a poor autumn may have less energy for pregnancy and nursing. Brown bear litters are usually small too. Many brown bear mothers have 1, 2, or 3 cubs. In places such as Alaska, Yellowstone, coastal British Columbia, Northern Europe, and Russia, cub survival can vary with food, weather, human disturbance, and the presence of other bears. A mother with 3 cubs has more bodies to feed and guard than a mother with 1. Each cub adds warmth and movement to the family, but each cub also adds demand. Polar bears commonly give birth to twins. Single cubs also occur, and triplets are possible. For polar bears, the cost of raising young is especially high, because the mother may spend many months fasting around denning and early cub care. She must nurse in a snow den, then lead the cubs towards sea ice, where seals are the main food. A polar bear mother with 2 cubs is dividing her milk, warmth, and attention in an environment where mistakes can carry a heavy cost. Giant pandas show an even sharper limit. A panda mother can give birth to twins, especially in managed care. But in the wild, she usually raises 1 cub successfully. A newborn panda is so tiny and helpless that caring for 2 is extremely difficult. The mother must hold the cub, position it for nursing, keep it warm, and respond to its small sounds. In managed care, human caretakers may sometimes swap twins in and out with the mother, allowing both to receive care. In the wild, that kind of help does not exist. Littermates are warmth sources, play partners, and competitors. Inside the den, they can help each other by sharing body heat. Outside the den, they wrestle, chase, climb, and practice movement together. A sibling can be the first moving body a cub learns to push against. A sibling can also be the cub reaching for the same nipple. Milk access matters because the mother's milk is the cub's main food during the early months. If one cub is larger, stronger, or better positioned, it may nurse more easily. A smaller cub may have to work harder to stay warm and fed. These differences can appear even within the same litter, especially when food was limited before denning, or when the mother is raising several cubs at once. Maternal investment is the energy and care a mother gives to her young. For bears, that investment includes pregnancy, denning, milk, warmth, protection, travel choices, and time. Every cub draws from the same reserve. The mother's body has already spent stored fat to bring them through winter. Now the family needs more food from the outside world. As the cubs grow, their hunger grows with them. They still nurse, but they also begin watching what the mother eats. They smell the plants she noses through. They notice the logs she tears apart. They follow her toward water, green shoots, insects, berries, nuts, fish or carrion. The family remains close, but the pressure is changing. Milk carried the first stage of life. The landscape has to begin carrying the next one. The first outside meals arrive through many small investigations. A cub watches the mother lower her nose to the ground, push aside wet leaves, or pause beside a rotting log. The cub may copy the motion before it understands the reward. A paw scrapes at soil. A nose presses into moss. A small mouth tests a blade of grass, a root tip, or the soft inside of a broken stump. Bears are omnivores. An omnivore is an animal that eats both plant and animal foods. That flexibility helps bears survive in many habitats, from eastern hardwood forests to Alaskan salmon rivers. But it also means cubs have a lot to learn. Food is spread across the year. Spring may offer fresh grasses, sedges, skunk cabbage in wet places, new shoots, roots, and winter-killed animals uncovered by melting snow. Sedges are grass-like plants that often grow in wet soil. Their early growth can be useful when richer foods have not appeared yet. By summer, berry patches begin to matter. Black bears may feed on blueberries, huckleberries, raspberries, blackberries, serviceberries, and other soft fruits depending on the region. A cub learns that a sunny opening, a burned forest edge, or a high mountain slope can hold food at certain times. The fruit gives sugar and water, and a bear may spend hours moving slowly through a patch, stripping berries with lips, teeth, and tongue. Insects add a different lesson. A mother bear may roll a log, tear into rotten wood, or dig into an anthill. Inside, there may be ants, beetle larvae, grubs, or termites. Larvae are the young stage of insects before they become adults. They can be soft, fatty, and high in protein. The cub learns through smell first, because a log with insects does not always look different from an empty one. The mother's nose, claws, and feeding choices show where effort is worth spending. Autumn changes the calendar again. In many black bear habitats, acorns and beech nuts become important because they carry far more calories than spring greens. These tree foods are often called hard mast. Mast means the nuts and seeds produced by trees and shrubs. A good acorn crop under oaks can help a bear gain fat before winter. A poor crop can push bears to travel farther, feed longer, or search in riskier places. Cubs following their mother through autumn learn which trees drop food, where nuts collect in leaf litter, and how smell can lead them to hidden calories. Brown bears have their own wide diet. They may dig roots, graze on sedges, eat berries, tear apart logs for insects, scavenge carrion, hunt small or young mammals when they can, and feed on salmon in regions where salmon runs are available. Carrion means the body of a dead animal. It can be risky because other animals may be nearby, but for a bear, it can also be a dense source of fat and protein. The mother's behavior helps the cub learn when to approach, when to wait, and when to leave. Food learning is pattern learning. A smell becomes linked with a place. A texture becomes linked with something edible. A season becomes linked with a root. The cub does not need to understand the whole pattern at once. Repeated days create the memory. A creek bank in spring, a berry slope in July, and an oak stand in October can become parts of the same yearly map. Human foods can interfere with this process because garbage, birdseed, pet food, and campsite scraps are rich, easy, and dangerous for bears. That modern problem belongs to a later part of the cub's story. For now, the young bear is still learning the older calendar written by plants, insects, animals, and weather. Each meal outside the den teaches more than taste. It teaches timing. It teaches effort. It teaches the cub that the world changes, and survival depends on changing with it. In some bear country, that edible calendar grows suddenly richer when fish return from the ocean and a river becomes one of the most important classrooms a cub will ever see. A salmon river teaches through sound before it teaches through food. Water drops over stone. Fish strike the current with their bodies. Adult brown bears stand in the river, on gravel bars, and along the banks, each one choosing a place where salmon may pass close enough to catch. In Katmai National Park and Preserve in Alaska, Brooks River is one of the clearest places to see this kind of bear childhood. The river runs between Brooks Lake and Naknek Lake, and at Brooks Falls, sockeye salmon try to leap upstream during the summer run. Many of those salmon have spent years feeding in the ocean. When they return to freshwater, they carry ocean energy back into the river system. Their bodies are rich in protein and fat. For a brown bear preparing for winter, that matters. For a mother raising cubs, it can matter even more. A cub arriving at the river does not begin as a skilled fisher. It may stay near the bank, close to the mother, watching the water with quick, uncertain movements. The current is loud. The rocks can be slick. A young cub can be swept off balance in water that an adult bear crosses with heavy steps. The mother's route matters here, just as it mattered in the forest. She may choose a bank, a shallow edge, or a place away from the strongest adult bears. At Brooks Falls, dominant adult bears often control the best fishing positions. A large bear standing at the lip of the falls can catch salmon as they jump. Other bears may wait below, where tired or injured fish drift back in the current. Some bears dive. Some chase fish in shallower water. Some sit and wait with a skill built over years. Cubs usually learn at the edges of this system. They watch where their mother stands. They notice when she moves toward the water and when she backs away. They may approach salmon scraps left on rocks or pieces dropped after an adult bear eats the richest parts. At times, bears eating salmon may choose the skin, brain, and eggs first, because those parts can be especially high in fat and nutrients. A cub feeding on leftovers is still learning something important. It learns the smell of fresh fish. It learns the feel of a slippery body under its paws. It learns that a river can be food, danger, and crowd all at once. The salmon run is a seasonal pulse. A pulse is a strong arrival of resources during a limited time. At Brooks River, Sockeye salmon are often most active in midsummer, with July being an important month for bears at the falls. Later in the season, after salmon have spawned, bears may feed again on dead or weakened fish. Spawned salmon have finished laying or fertilizing eggs. Their bodies begin to break down, and many become easier for bears, gulls, eagles, insects, and other animals to use. This carries nutrients through the ecosystem. A salmon born in fresh water may grow in the ocean, return to an Alaskan river, feed a bear, and then leave traces of marine nutrients in the forest through scat, scraps, and remains. For a cub, the lesson is much simpler at first. Follow the mother. Stay clear of large bears. Approach food when it is safe. Learn where the current is too strong. Wait when waiting works. This kind of learning includes social rank. Social rank means the order of access among animals in the same place. A large adult male may hold a better fishing spot than a smaller bear. A mother with cubs may avoid a crowded area if the risk is too high. Cubs learn by watching these distances. They learn which bears the mother avoids. They learn how close is too close. They learn that food can be abundant and still difficult to reach. The river widens the cub's education beyond one family. Ocean, fish, current, season, adult bears, and winter preparation all meet in one moving place. A young bear standing near Brooks River is learning from a landscape that changes by the week. As salmon arrive, weaken, spawn, and fade from the water. For some cubs, childhood is shaped by this richness. For others, the first lessons come far from trees and salmon, in snow dens where the path to food lies across shifting sea ice. On Arctic coasts, the classroom can drift. A polar bear cub enters a world where the ground under the family may crack, freeze, melt, and move with wind and current. The first shelter is usually a maternity den dug in snow. A pregnant female may choose a snowdrift along a coastal bank, an island ridge, a river bluff, or a pressure ridge where wind has packed snow deep enough to hold a chamber. She often digs this den in autumn or early winter, before the coldest months settle fully over the Arctic. Inside, the snow walls hold trapped air, which slows heat loss and softens the force of outside wind. Polar bear cubs are usually born in winter, often from November through January, depending on the region and the mother's timing. They are small, blind, lightly furred, and completely dependent. The mother may have gone many months without feeding by the time the cubs are born. She may have stopped hunting before denning, stayed in the snow chamber through birth, and continued fasting while nursing. During that time, her body is spending fat built during earlier hunting seasons. For polar bears, that stored fat usually comes from seals. Ringed seals and bearded seals are especially important prey in many Arctic areas. The mother's milk helps the cubs grow inside the den, while outside, the sea ice changes through darkness, storms, and extreme cold. The family may leave the den in spring, often around March or April, when the cubs are stronger but still very young. Their first travel can be slow. A cub may stumble in loose snow. Its paws may sink into soft drifts. It may pause often, pressed near the mother's legs or belly. The mother has to lead them from the denning area towards sea ice, where feeding becomes possible again. For polar bears, sea ice is the hunting platform. It is the place where the bear can reach seals. A polar bear may wait near a seal breathing hole, where a seal comes up through the ice for air. It may move along cracks, ice edges, or areas where seals haul out to rest. Haul out means an animal comes out of the water onto ice or land. These hunting methods require patience, scent, timing, and stillness. A young cub cannot master them quickly. It first has to learn how to travel. It follows the mother across frozen surfaces that can be smooth, ridged, broken, or covered with snow. Pressure ridges can rise like rough walls where sheets of ice have pushed together. Open leads, which are cracks or channels of open water, may separate one piece of ice from another. A cub has to learn when to walk, when to wait, and when to stay close. Swimming may become part of life too, especially where ice breaks apart or gaps open between flows. A floe is a sheet of floating sea ice. Polar bear cubs can swim, but cold water is hard on small bodies, and long swims are much more difficult for young bears than for adults. This is one reason the mother's route matters so much. She is choosing paths through a changing surface while still losing energy from nursing and travel. Polar bear cubs usually remain with their mothers for about 2.5 years, and in some cases close to 3. That longer childhood fits the difficulty of the habitat. Finding seals is not like finding berries under a summer sun or acorns beneath a tree. The food is often hidden below ice. The correct place may be marked by faint scent, a breathing hole, a crack, or the shape of the frozen surface. A cub must learn to wait beside the mother, while very little appears to happen. It must learn that stillness can be part of hunting. It must learn that ice is both road and danger, both shelter and distance. Modern warming adds pressure to this childhood because sea ice now forms later, melts earlier, or becomes less stable in many Arctic regions. That change can shorten the time available for hunting seals from the ice. For a mother with cubs, fewer hunting days can mean less fat stored for nursing, travel, and future denning. The surface their lives depend on is becoming less reliable in many places. The polar bear stretches cubhood across cold, distance, patience, and moving ice. Another bear shows a different edge of infancy, where the world is warmer, the food is bamboo, and the newborn begins almost unbelievably small. In the mountain forests of central China, a bear cub can begin life smaller than many household objects. The giant panda, whose scientific name is Ailuropoda melanoleuca, belongs to the bear family. Its adult body is strong, thick-furred, and built for climbing, gripping bamboo, and moving through cool forests in places such as Sichuan, Shanxi, and Gansu. Yet its newborn is one of the most extreme examples of helplessness among bears. A giant panda cub often weighs only 3 to 5 ounces at birth. Beside a mother that may weigh more than 200 pounds, the cub may be around 1/900th of her body weight. That difference is so large that the newborn can seem almost unfinished, even compared with other bear cubs. Its skin is pink. Its eyes are closed. Its fur is sparse, pale, and very thin. The bold black and white pattern that makes adult pandas easy to recognize develops later, as the skin darkens in certain areas and the fur grows in more fully. At first, the cub cannot crawl far. It cannot see the mother's face. It cannot keep itself warm without close contact. Its body depends on being held, shifted, and placed in the right position again and again. A panda mother uses her forelimbs, mouth, chest, and belly to keep the cub close. She may cradle it against her body for warmth. She may lift it gently in her mouth to reposition it. she has to help the cub reach milk because the newborn is too small and weak to manage much on its own. Even a slight separation can matter when the cub's body loses heat quickly. This makes early panda care unusually intense. The mother's attention is focused on a living body only a few inches long, with tiny limbs and a high, sharp call. That call helps keep contact between mother and cub. When the cub cries, the mother may adjust her position, bring the cub closer, or guide it toward nursing. In the wild, giant pandas sometimes give birth to twins. Raising both is extremely difficult. A mother usually has enough energy and practical ability to raise one cub successfully. In breeding centers, caretakers may sometimes help by swapping twins between the mother and an incubator, so each cub receives maternal care in turns. In the wild forest, that human support is absent, and one cub usually receives the full care. The panda's later diet makes the beginning even more striking. An adult giant panda eats mostly bamboo and may spend many hours each day feeding. Bamboo is tough, fibrous, and lower in energy than many animal foods. The panda has special wrist bones that help it grip bamboo stems, and strong jaw muscles that help crush shoots and stalks. Even so, its digestive system still resembles that of other carnivorans. Carnivorans are mammals in the order Carnivora, the group that includes bears, cats, dogs, seals, and their relatives. Many members of this group are meat eaters, and the panda's gut has not become as specialized for plant digestion as the gut of a cow or deer. A panda cub has to pass through a long change before it can live on bamboo. Milk comes first. Later, the cub grows stronger, develops teeth, begins moving more, and eventually starts tasting bamboo. The famous bamboo eater begins as a tiny nursing animal that cannot even hold itself steady. This extreme beginning widens the meaning of bear cub life. A black bear cub may learn trees. A brown bear cub may learn salmon rivers. A polar bear cub may learn snow, ice, seal scent, and long travel. A panda cub begins with an even smaller circle of survival, pressed close to the mother's body in a mountain forest, where bamboo will matter later. Across these different bears, the same pattern keeps returning. The cub begins with limits the mother must cover. She carries the energy cost. She manages the danger around the young. She makes the first choices until the cub can begin making small choices of its own. As the young bear grows, that care changes shape, and the mother's protection becomes one of the strongest forces in the cub's early life. That change begins while the cub still depends on the mother for nearly every serious decision. Across bear species, the mother is the center of early survival. Male bears generally do not help raise cubs. After mating, the female carries the cost of pregnancy, denning, nursing, travel, protection, and teaching. A cub's first safe routes, first feeding places, and first responses to danger usually come through her movements. This care has a biological cost. Maternal investment means the time, energy, and risk a parent spends raising young. For a bear mother, that investment begins before birth, when she gathers fat during summer and autumn. It continues through delayed implantation, winter denning, milk production, den emergence, spring travel, and the long months of teaching cubs where to feed. A cub lost after all of that work represents more than a small body. It represents stored fat, months of nursing, and a season of careful movement that cannot be quickly replaced. That cost helps explain protective behavior. Protection does not always look like a charge or a fight. Much of it is quieter than that. A mother may avoid a risky place before danger becomes close. She may choose thick cover instead of open ground. She may travel at certain times of day. She may keep cubs near her body when crossing a stream, approaching a carcass, or moving through an area used by other bears. She may pause often, lift her nose, listen, and scent the air before continuing. In black bears, trees can be part of this protection. A mother with cubs may move toward forest cover when she is disturbed. Her cubs may climb, using curved claws and light bodies to rise into branches. The mother may remain below, move away, or watch from nearby, depending on the situation. Black bears often avoid direct conflict when escape is available, though any bear can be dangerous if it is pressured, cornered, surprised, or defending young. The important point is the strategy. For a black bear family, vertical space can help keep cubs out of reach. Brown bear mothers often face a different set of pressures. Brown bears, including grizzly bears in western North America, tend to be larger and more ground-oriented. Their cubs may climb when young, but the family's protection often depends more on spacing, awareness, terrain, and the mother's willingness to stand her ground. In places such as Alaska, Yellowstone, and coastal British Columbia, brown bears may share rich feeding areas with other bears. Salmon streams, carcasses, berry slopes, and open meadows can bring bears close together. An adult male can be a threat to cubs in some situations. Adult male bears may kill cubs, and this danger is one reason a mother's choices around other bears matter so much. She may avoid certain individuals, keep distance in crowded feeding areas, or use cover and terrain to reduce risk. Polar bear mothers carry protection across a moving surface. After leaving a snow den, a mother may lead cubs over ridged ice, through deep snow, and around open water. She must balance food and safety while still recovering from the long fasting period around denning. Her main prey, seals, may be hidden beneath the ice or available only at breathing holes and ice edges. The cubs need milk, rest, and warmth, while the mother needs hunting chances. A route that saves energy can matter. A delay near a dangerous lead in the ice can matter. A missed feeding chance can matter. Protection in this setting includes patience, route choice, body heat, and the ability to judge ice conditions. The mother's behavior changes as cubs grow. A tiny cub may need to be carried, repositioned, or kept pressed close. An older cub can follow, climb, dig, investigate, and play. That growing ability gives the mother more options, but it also creates new problems. Larger cubs are bolder. They move farther from her side. They become hungrier as their bodies grow. They test logs, slopes, rivers, fish, berries, and other bears with more confidence than they had in their first weeks outside. Protection slowly becomes management. The mother is still guarding them, but she is also guiding young animals that are beginning to act on their own. Their childhood is moving toward a stage where they are no longer tiny cubs, yet still not ready to live alone. By the second year, that middle stage has a name. A yearling is an animal in its second year of life. For a bear, this means the tiny den-born cub has passed through its first spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Its body has stretched longer. Its legs carry more weight. Its paws press more firmly into mud, snow, sand, leaf litter, or riverbank gravel. The young bear still travels with its mother in many species, but the family no longer moves like it did in the first weeks after den emergence. A black bear yearling may be able to climb quickly, dig into rotten logs, feed on berries, and travel farther from the mother before returning. It may still rest near her, follow her roots, and rely on her choices, yet its own body is doing more of the work. Black bear cubs often remain with the mother for about 16 to 18 months. That means a cub born in January may stay through its first full year, then separate around late spring or early summer of the following year, though timing can vary by region and condition. During that yearling period, feeding becomes more independent. The young bear may nose through grass, paw at insect logs, chew berries, or investigate acorns beneath oak trees. It may still copy the mother closely, but repetition has started to turn into memory. A path to water is familiar. A tree used for safety is familiar. A slope where berries ripened last summer may become familiar when the season returns. In brown bears, the family period often lasts longer. Many brown bear cubs remain with the mother for about 2 years, with timing shaped by food, habitat, population density, and the mother's condition. A brown bear yearling in coastal Alaska may spend another season near salmon streams, learning how fish move through shallows, how adult bears arrange themselves at feeding sites, and when distance is safer than approach. In interior mountain habitats, a yearling may learn berry patches, digging areas, carcass sites, open meadows, and sheltered bedding places. The mother is still important, but the yearling's own senses are becoming more useful. Its nose can search. Its ears can follow small sounds. Its eyes can track movement. Its muscles can carry it over longer ground. Polar bear cubs stretch this middle stage even farther. They often remain with their mothers for about 2.5 years. Some may stay close to 3 years. That longer childhood fits a difficult Arctic life. A young polar bear has to learn travel across sea ice, swimming between floes, waiting near seal-breathing holes, and following scent across snow and wind-packed surfaces. The mother cannot simply show one feeding place and be done. Seal hunting depends on patience, timing, ice condition, and long periods when nothing seems to happen. A polar bear yearling may still nurse for part of its second year, though nursing decreases as the young bear becomes larger. In black bears and brown bears, nursing also fades as the young eat more outside food. Milk may disappear from the daily pattern before the family bond ends. That shift matters. Food begins coming from the young bear's own mouth, paws, nose, and memory, rather than mainly from the mother's body. This is practiced independence. The yearling still benefits from the mother's roots and protection, but it is learning to carry more of survival inside itself. A stronger body changes behavior. A yearling may wander farther during feeding. It may climb higher, dig harder, wrestle with more force, or test the distance it can put between itself and the mother before returning. Confidence grows through use. A log opened for insects teaches effort. A stream crossing teaches balance. A berry slope teaches patience and slow feeding. A crowded salmon area teaches spacing around larger bears. The mother's protection also changes shape. She still watches, chooses routes, and responds to danger. But she is now managing young bears that can move quickly and make their own small decisions. That creates a quiet pressure inside the family. The yearlings are becoming capable enough to survive more of the world, while the mother's body, will eventually return to its own reproductive cycle. Each season of learning brings the family closer to the point where following ends and the young bear has to use the map alone. The change usually comes through distance before it comes through full separation. A young bear that once stayed close to the mother's side may begin feeding a little farther away. It may climb, dig, or nose through leaf litter while she feeds nearby. The family may still rest together, travel together, and use the same familiar routes. Yet the tight pattern of early cubhood begins to loosen. In black bears, this family breakup often happens when the young are around 16 to 18 months old. A cub born in January may spend its first spring, summer, autumn, and winter with the mother. By the following late spring or early summer, the young bear may be large enough to feed on its own, follow scent trails, climb well, and use the places it learned during its first year. That timing often lines up with the mother's next breeding season. Female black bears may come into estrus, which means a period when they can mate, after their young are ready to separate. The mother's behavior can shift during this time. She may become less tolerant of close following. She may move away when the yearlings approach. She may leave them in an area they already know. To human eyes, the change can seem abrupt, but biologically it belongs to the same long pattern that began with delayed implantation, denning, nursing, and guided travel. The mother has brought the young to the point where they can use their own bodies and memory. Brown bear families often stay together longer. Many brown bear cubs remain with the mother for about 2 years, though timing can vary by region, food supply, and population pressure. A brown bear cub in coastal Alaska may have 2 seasons to watch salmon fishing, learn bear spacing along rivers, and follow the mother between feeding areas. In interior mountain country, those 2 years may include berry slopes, digging sites, meadows, carcass areas, and denning routes. When separation comes, it can still be tied to the mother's return to breeding condition. Her future reproduction and the young bear's growing ability meet at the same point. Polar bears often stretch the family period farther. Cubs commonly remain with the mother for about 2.5 years. During that time, they learn long travel, sea ice movement, seal hunting sites, swimming, fasting periods, and the patience needed around breathing holes. A young polar bear has more to learn before independence because the main food source is hidden beneath ice and reached through difficult hunting. When separation finally happens, the young bear faces a landscape where distance and hunger can be severe teachers. Family breakup is shaped by survival readiness. Nursing has usually ended or become much less important before full separation. The young bear has eaten outside foods for months or years. It has followed routes enough times for some of them to become familiar. It has practiced climbing, digging, foraging, avoiding older bears, and reading the mother's reactions to danger. The mother's care has shifted from constant physical support to a looser kind of guidance. The young bear is no longer the blind newborn pressed against fur in the den. It is a larger animal with its own strength, senses, and learned habits. Young bears may remain near familiar areas at first. In some bear populations, young females often settle closer to the mother's range than young males do. This pattern is called female philopatry. Philopatry means staying near or returning to the area where an animal was born or raised. Young males often travel farther, which can reduce competition with close relatives and help them find new space. The details vary with food, habitat, bear density, and human disturbance. Still, the first independent movements often begin from places the young bear already knows. A stream crossing, a berry patch, a hollow tree, a ridge trail, an oak stand where nuts fall in autumn. The mother has stopped being the center of every movement, but the map she helped build remains inside the young bear's behavior. The family period ends because it has done its work. The next challenge is space. The young bear now has to turn familiar routes into a range of its own. At first, independence can look like slow wandering. A young bear may move through places that still smell familiar, then push beyond them into ground it has never used without its mother. This young animal is often called a subadult. A subadult bear is old enough to live away from the mother, with adult size, full strength, and breeding still ahead. Its body is larger than it was as a cub, and its senses are sharper. Yet it is still learning how to fit into a landscape already used by older bears. The search now becomes practical. The young bear needs feeding areas, resting places, water, cover, and winter shelter. It needs routes between those places. It needs enough space to find food without meeting stronger bears too often. A home range is the area an animal regularly uses for feeding, resting, mating, and movement. For a young bear, a home range begins as repeated travel. A bear crosses the same creek more than once. It returns to the same berry slope. It finds a shaded bedding place under thick spruce, hemlock, alder, or mountain shrub. It walks the edge of a river gravel bar where fish scraps may appear. Those repeated movements turn space into knowledge. Scent helps shape the range. A bear can smell food, old tracks, scat, tree markings, carcasses, and other bears. A torn stump may hold the odor of ants or beetle larvae. A berry patch may carry the sweet smell of ripe fruit during summer. A trail used by a large adult male may warn a smaller subadult to move carefully. Smell gives information before sight does, especially in thick forest or low light. Memory gives that information a place to settle. The young bear is carrying lessons from its mother's roots, but it now has to test those lessons alone. Some areas will work. Others will be too exposed, too poor in food, or too crowded with older bears. Dominant adult bears can be a serious pressure, especially around rich food sources. At a salmon river, a larger adult may control the best fishing place. At a carcass, bigger bears may arrive first, or push smaller bears away. In a strong berry year, food may be spread widely enough to reduce conflict. In a poor food year, bears may travel more and meet each other more often. A young bear has to balance hunger against danger. Dispersal is the movement away from the area where an animal was born or raised. In many bear populations, young males tend to disperse farther than young females. A female black bear may settle near or partly overlap her mother's old range if there is enough space and food. A young male may travel much farther, sometimes moving across valleys, ridges, rivers, farms, roads, and forest blocks before settling. The distance varies widely. Species, sex, food supply, bear density, mountains, water, towns, and highways can all change how far a young bear goes. Habitat fragmentation adds another layer. Fragmentation means a habitat has been broken into smaller pieces by roads, buildings, farms, logging, or other changes. A forest that once connected feeding areas may now be divided by pavement, fences, houses, or fields. For a dispersing bear, each break can create a choice. Cross the road, follow the ditch, move at night, turn back toward cover, search along a river corridor. A wrong choice can bring the bear closer to vehicles, dogs, livestock, people, or food that smells easy but leads to trouble. Even in wild country, independence is demanding. The young bear must find enough calories before winter. It must choose a den site when the season turns. It must avoid injuries that would make feeding harder. It must learn which smells led to food and which lead to conflict. A cub once protected by the mother's body now has to read weather, hunger, scent, distance, and risk for itself. Older landscapes asked bears to read forests, rivers, mountains, sea ice, and bamboo slopes. Modern landscapes can add roads, garbage, campsites, orchards, bird feeders, and towns to the same early education. A young bear searching along the edge of a town can meet a very different kind of food map. The smells may come from garbage bins, backyard grills, bird feeders, fruit trees, compost piles, pet food bowls, coolers, and campsites. To a bear's nose, these places can be powerful. A sealed container that seems ordinary to a person may still leak the scent of meat, sugar, oil, seeds, or fruit. A campsite where food was left out overnight can smell as clear as a berry patch. A garbage bag behind a restaurant can carry more calories than many natural spring foods. For a cub or subadult, the danger begins with learning. Learning itself is neutral. The same memory that helps a young bear return to a blueberry slope in July can also lead it back to a porch where birdseed spilled beneath a feeder. The same nose that finds beetle larvae inside rotten wood can find pet food in a shed. The same ability to follow the mother's choices can pass on risky habits if the mother has already learned to feed near people. A cub that follows a food-conditioned mother may watch her approach cabins, dumpsters, roadsides, orchards, or campsites. Food conditioning means an animal has learned to connect people, buildings, vehicles, or human places with food. The food reward changes future behavior. A bear that finds garbage once may return to the same place. A bear that finds birdseed in several yards may begin checking more yards. A bear that opens a cooler at a campground may learn that human objects can contain food. Habituation is related but different. Habituation means an animal becomes less fearful after repeated contact that does not seem harmful. A bear may see people again and again along a road, trail, or neighborhood edge. If nothing frightening happens, it may react less strongly over time. A habituated bear may continue feeding while people watch from cars. A food-conditioned bear may actively seek out human food sources. When both patterns develop together, risk rises for people and for bears. This can begin early. A cub does not separate natural and human foods into moral categories. It learns from smell, reward, repetition, and the mother's movement. If a mother leads cubs to an unsecured dumpster, the cubs may remember the route. If she feeds under apple trees beside a house, the cubs may learn that yards can contain food. If she crosses roads often to reach garbage or campsites, the cubs may learn those crossings too. Roads create danger in a second way. They divide habitat into smaller pieces, a process called fragmentation. Fragmentation means a larger habitat has been broken into smaller parts by roads, buildings, farms, fences, or other changes. A young bear dispersing through a fragmented area may have to cross pavement to reach water, cover, denning areas, or feeding sites. Vehicles can kill bears directly. Roads can also steer bears toward ditches, culverts, neighborhoods, and other human edges where food smells collect. Wildlife managers often focus on attractants. An attractant is anything that draws an animal in. For bears, common attractants include garbage, birdseed, pet food, barbecue grease, compost, fruit trees, beehives, livestock feed, coolers, and food left around campsites. Securing these items can protect both people and bears. Bear-resistant bins, electric fencing around beehives, clean campsites, locked food storage, and removing bird feeders during active bear season all reduce chances for the wrong kind of learning. The common phrase, "a fed bear is a dead bear," is used by wildlife agencies because repeated food conflict can lead to relocation or killing of problem bears. The phrase is blunt, but the biology behind it is simple. A bear that learns human food can become harder to keep wild and safe. For a young bear, early lessons can last. A cub born in a den learns warmth first. Later, it learns milk, movement, scent, roots, trees, insects, berries, fish, ice, or bamboo. Human foods can enter that same chain of memory. That makes cubhood important far beyond its soft beginning. The young bear carries early experiences into the adult world, and those experiences can shape where it travels, what it seeks, and how safely it can live near the edges of human life. The path now returns to that small winter beginning, where every later choice started as dependence, warmth, milk, and the first quiet lessons beside the mother. A young bear moving alone carries more than hunger through the landscape. Its body is larger now, and its paws press deeper into soil, snow, gravel, or leaf litter. Its nose searches ahead. Its ears turn towards small sounds. Its memory holds roots that began forming long before independence. The bear may follow a creek through an eastern forest, move along a salmon river in Alaska, cross a ridge in the Rocky Mountains, step over Arctic ice, or climb through the bamboo forests of central China. Each place asks for different skills, yet the beginning of those skills reaches back to the first hidden stage of cubhood. Before the cub had a range, it had a den. Before it walked behind its mother, its development had already been shaped by delayed implantation, that quiet pause when the early embryo waited before attaching to the uterus. That pause tied birth to season and body condition. The mother's summer and autumn feeding helped decide whether the pregnancy could continue. Acorns, beech nuts, berries, roots, insects, carrion, or salmon became stored fat. Stored fat helped carry the mother through denning. Milk carried that stored season into the cub. The cub's first world was small enough to fit inside the warmth of the mother's curled body. It knew touch before distance. It knew scent before roots. It knew sound before open air. A squeak, a shift of fur, the smell of milk, and the pressure of warmth were enough to guide it through the earliest days. Those first senses did a simple job, but the job mattered completely. They kept the cub near food and heat, while its eyes, limbs, fur, and balance were still developing. Spring widened that first world. The cub left the den into wet leaves, snow patches, tree roots, cold air, and unfamiliar light. Its mother's movement became the first map outside the body. A stop beside a log could mean insects. A pause beneath an oak could mean autumn food. A route to water could become part of memory. A berry slope could become useful again when summer returned. The cub learned by following, smelling, tasting, copying, and repeating. Black bear cubs carried that learning upward into trees. Curved claws, light bodies, rough bark, and repeated climbing made vertical space part of safety. Brown bear cubs in salmon country carried their learning to rivers, where the current, adult bears, fishing positions, scraps, and seasonal salmon runs turned feeding into a lesson in timing and rank. Polar bear cubs carried their learning across sea ice, where seals were reached through breathing holes, ice edges, scent, patience, and long travel. Panda cubs began from an even smaller circle of care, pink, blind, and almost helpless, before growing toward the bamboo-feeding life of an adult giant panda. Play added another layer. A cub wrestling with a littermate practiced balance, paw control, jaw pressure, and social limits. A push, a tumble, a chase, or a controlled bite became part of how the body learned to move with strength. Siblings also taught the cost of sharing. Milk, warmth, space, and the mother's attention were limited, especially in litters of 2 or 3. Family life gave comfort and pressure at the same time, and both helped shape the growing bear. The mother remained the center through much of this early life. She chose routes. She avoided danger. She used cover, trees, distance, snow, slopes, or river edges in ways the cub could not yet judge for itself. As the cub became a yearling, her protection changed into guidance for a stronger, hungrier animal. After family breakup, the young bear had to turn her map into its own range. That is the deeper meaning of cubhood. It is a building period for adult survival. Growth is measured in weight and size, but also in remembered places, useful smells, practiced movements, safe distances, seasonal foods, and learned caution. A bear cub begins as a blind body in winter darkness. It grows through milk made from stored fat, through the warmth of a den, through the mother's roots, through play with littermates, through first foods, first dangers, and first distances. Later, when the young bear moves alone through forest, river, ice, or mountain shade, those early lessons continue moving with it. The den is gone. The mother is no longer beside every step. The cub has become a young bear reading the larger world with skills that began in darkness, close to warmth, before spring ever touched the ground.